Hi everyone. Very warm welcome to all of you to Loctopus's webinar on IPR as a career. My name is Suvarna Dubey. I am the learning manager at Loctopus. Here I handle, amongst other courses, the intellectual property rights course as well, which I will be telling you a bit more in detail towards the second half of this session. But before that, to explain you a little more about how IPR is as a career, what can you do to build a successful career in it, and also to give you more details about how and how much do IPR advocates earn. We have with us two experts here today. The first expert today that we have here with us is Advocate H.B. Keshwa. He is an alumnus of UPS Dehradun. He has his master's in law from Indian Law School Society, ILS Law College in Pune. He also holds a degree in psychology. He started Bhaskar and Associates with the goal to serve startups and young companies in the field of IPR and corporate law. So thank you so much for being here today. We're looking forward to learning from you. The second expert we have here today is Ms. Pragya Arora. She is a strategic and responsive lawyer who founded PA Legal after working for 3 years at Khurana and Khurana, which is a leading IPR law firm. Her expertise is in patent related matters. She completed her law from IIT Kharagpur in IPR. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. We're looking forward to learning from you. So I think we can start with today's session.
Okay, thank you, Suvarna, and thank you, Loctopus, for giving us the opportunity to come in front of so many amazing students and friends. And I would call you people friends because we all are going to face in the legal fraternity in the near future. And it's good to be amongst people who have actually shown interest in the field of intellectual property. And as I would call you people as technology legal practitioners of the future. And thank you for giving us this opportunity. And we hope that the session we'll be able to do justice to you in the next whatever time frame that we have. And having stalwarts like Pragya Arora is a matter of honor for even an individual like me to be able to, like sit in front of a person like her and, speak over here. So anyways, without any further ado, I would like to just quickly talk to you guys about what is a trademark, what is a copyright, and how exactly trademarks and copyrights can make a very, very, very amazing career. And what is it that you're looking at? Because let's be honest, like back in my days when I used to teach CLAT students, I'm talking about almost 10 years ago, I had the opportunity of teaching students appearing for the common law entrance tests. So when I had spoken to them, they always used to ask me a very simple question, but a very important question nevertheless, keeping in mind that that is why we all are educated. What is the salary, or what is the remuneration, what is the income, or how much are we actually going to earn in the future if we take up this line as a lawyer, or in most important case as an intellectual property advocate? Now this was one question which was there in my mind also, because I have been asked this question many times, even during my internship days when I had done my internship with Luthra and Luthra or Ranjan Narula Associates, or when I'd done my internship with some of the big law firms. So they all ask me this one common question. I mean, that is especially my relatives who used to ask this question, that if you do IPR, will you earn as much as a criminal advocate? If you do IPR, will you earn as much as a civil advocate? The first thing is that there is no diversification, because intellectual property has seen both criminal actions and civil actions. The point is what you take and what fires you up. And most importantly, when it comes down to the earning part of it, please remember, that's how I want to begin the statement. Please remember that intellectual property is the division of law that deals with innovation and technology. Intellectual property is that one division of law which deals with innovation and technology. So tomorrow you see a flying car, or tomorrow you're seeing a certain kind of a wireless charger where you can charge your phone without even placing it on any particular platform. Tomorrow, if you see a certain kind of a medicine being delivered remotely from a different part of the world, tomorrow you see people settling in Mars, or you see people settling in probably one of the different like planets in the solar system. Trust me, intellectual property is going to get involved. It's not just the jurisdictional laws we are looking at. We are talking about technology laws over here. And IPR has always sided with innovation and technology. So the more you see technological improvements, the more you see the innovation factor coming in. Trust me, intellectual property is going to be involved. So where an innovation costs a lot, where a company like Tesla costs a lot, where Mahindra or Tata are coming out with some amazing technologies in the future, trust me, IPR is involved. So if something costs $1 billion, then the legal part of defending it itself would be almost 50% of it. So that is how the income can be imagined in the future. But anyways, let me just go down to the basics. Let me just talk to you people about what exactly is a trademark and what exactly is a copyright before we go a little deeper into understanding the financial structure or what we are earning in the future. So when we look at trademarks is a very simple entity. Okay, many people will come to you and say that, ki, sir, naam ko patent karna hai. Trust me, if they come to you asking that, it basically means that they are not that aware about intellectual property. So educate them. Educate them meaning talk to them, convey what is going on in your mind, and tell them that this is not a patent. We are talking about a trademark, because trademark has always been the scratching surface of intellectual property. So when I say a brand like Apple, the second I said Apple, you all would have imagined the logo of Apple. Maybe I see a few stalwarts also in the group. I see a few PhD scholars in the group. So maybe if I could go down to the point where I say that Nokia, I mean, let's go back to my generation when Nokia was one of the most classiest companies for anybody to hold on to. So the second I said Nokia, you all imagined that little Nokia which is written, the way those phones were structured, the very fact that there were two hands coming and holding on together, connecting people, those entities used for the branding purposes, where a certain entity is able to say out to the market that, look, I am this brand and this is what I am. That is a trademark. I can say McDonald's, I can say Domino's, I can say Nerula's, Wimpy's, the food structure. We can say MDH Masala in the FMCGs. We can talk about Prada, Gucci, we can talk about Louis Vuitton, we can talk about Raymond in the clothing sector, in the hosiery sectors. We can talk about Cipla, we can talk about Roche, we can talk about Novartis in the pharmacy sectors. I can talk about Tata, Lamborghini, I can talk about Mahindra, I can talk about all the big ones like Tesla, which is coming in the automobile sector. So the second I said all these brand names, you would have imagined a certain logo in your mind, a certain image in your mind. The image could have been shape of the car, probably. It could have been the taste of the food. The second I said McDonald's, someone would have maybe thought of Mekalu Tiki Burger. The second I said Prada or Gucci, you imagined a certain kind of a designer outfit. So these entities which allows you to identify a product visually, or in certain cases in an olfactory manner. When I say olfactory manner, a taste can be trademarked, a smell can be trademarked, even a sound can be trademarked. So when those aspects come into your mind, that is a trademark. But sir, ये trademark होता क्या? इसमें इतनी बड़ी बात क्या है? What is such a big deal about trademarks that we all should be aware of? Remember, if your name is famous, if Ramjet Malani is a famous name, if Harish Salve is a famous name, if Loctopus is a famous name, then a brand name is the entire essence of it. And legally protecting that brand name is very important. I may walk into an Adidas showroom. I may look at the apparels over there. I may look at the accessories over there. And then I may look at my pocket. And I'm like, I may not be able to afford it. Then I may just go straight to Palika Bazaar in Delhi. Or I may go to Colaba Causeway in Bombay. Or I may go to Paltan Bazaar in Dehradun. Or I may go to one tiny shop in Chennai which says that, sir, I will sell Adidas in 300 rupees. That is where the law comes to protect big brands from stopping people from doing what they are doing. They are called as infringed goods or counterfeit goods. To stop that counterfeiting, to stop that infringement is why the law was originally developed. The intention behind the creation of the intellectual property laws, and especially the Trademarks Act, was for the purpose of stopping people from misusing the brand name, from stopping people from actually creating a counterfeit or duplicate brand name. You all would have heard of Alpenliebe. Have you heard of Albeli? Have you heard of Aapke Liye? Same branding, same kind of packaging, same taste also, but it is not Alpenliebe. We all have heard of Jump In, but I've actually worked in a very remote village when I used to work on a certain project. I was working in a remote village where I saw a certain product called as Jump Out. Same same kind of a packaging, same branding, but instead of Jump In, it is Jump Out. So when I look at these factors, the immediate question goes down to, did I connect with the original trademark? Now, for a person like me who can read and write, I could connect it and I knew this is a duplicate. But many people identify trademarks through colors, through packaging. There is Parle G, there is even Parle E, and there is even Parle G, that is JI. So those kind of entities were created, but people could not identify it by what was written. People identified because of the packaging. What is the color required? Once I walked down to my own village in Tamil Nadu, and there I realized that there is this one particular drink being sold called as Rola Cola. Same bottle, same red color, but instead of Coca-Cola, it was Rola Cola. And black drink. And people were like, Arey, that is Coca-Cola only. I asked those people, did you read on it? They were like, we can't read, but we know the color combination. That is where the trademark law needs to jump in and protect the people. Because sometimes it's not about duplicate products, it's also inferior products that are sold in the wrong name. Inferior products which would cause health hazards, which would cause loss of income, which could majorly cause any kind of entity which could affect the general public at large. And that is the whole purpose behind why the Trademark Act was created, to protect a brand name. Because your brand name is what defines you. If somebody says your name, people will know you by your name. So even a brand is known by your name. So usko bachana, usko protect karna, protecting that entity is extremely important. And that is where the trademark law comes in. Trademark has also been used. You would have heard of the word franchising. How do people determine a franchising cost? It is by determining the trademark value. They will see what is the value of this trademark. If I talk about just the trademark McDonald's, just the trademark McDonald's, I'm not talking about their burgers, I'm not talking about their recipes, just the name McDonald's. If you want to get a franchise or just want to determine the brand value, it would be in billions of dollars, because that's how famous and that's how a global entity McDonald's has become. So trademark again plays a very important role. Sometime back, I had even said that intellectual property has been involved in both criminal law and civil law. Till now, I've spoken about civil, but where is civil? What about criminal? It falls under the criminal frontier, where people conduct raids to find out how many people are selling counterfeit products. People commit the act of fraud by selling duplicate products. People pretend that they are the original creators of Apple. They are the original creators of OnePlus. They are the original creators of Burger King, and they will try to sell you their products. They all majorly fall under fraud. So that is where even the criminal law plays a very important role. So that is how trademark is a massive industry. You take beverages brands, one mother brand has so many sub brands under it. You take food brands, one mother brand has so many brands under it. If I just take Cadbury's ke niche dekho kitne sare brands. There's so many brands under Cadbury's. And even one tiny infringement can be an equivalent of almost crores, losses in crores for the mother brand Cadbury's. That is where a trademark advocate changes the game plan. Which takes me to the next aspect. Okay, sir, that is trademarks. What about copyrights? Now, what exactly are we looking at in copyrights? Now, back in my college days, I used to do this business. I'm going to call it a business, and you're going to love it. So I come from a cultural background. So I used to write poetry. Okay. So my friends used to come to me and say that, bhai, wo ladki pasand hai. Can you write a poem for me? I'd be like, okay, cool. So one day I wrote, I started writing poems. I started charging 10 rupees a poem, and I used to give it to my friends. And of course, they used to share it with their better halves. One day it so happened that I wrote a poem, gave it to a friend, and another friend came to me, and I was too lazy. So I wrote the same poem and I gave it to him. The problem, they both were approaching the same woman. Okay. They came to me and they said, Keshav, what is this? I was like, oh my God, what did I do? So basically, they were passing off my work as their work. And the problem is, I myself created a duplication in the copyrighted work. So artistic work, or when I say literary work, poetry, it falls under the copyright law. One of the biggest challenges we face as writers is that sometimes we just write for the fun of it, but people try to use it for their own benefit or for their own gain. How do you stop it? How do you curb it? For an artist like myself, it is hurtful. Like, I wrote the poem, it's my emotions, my feelings, but somebody else is getting it published and is earning out of it. What if I wrote a story today? I rewrite a really, really nice story. I know the story has the capability of becoming a stage play. The story has the capability of probably becoming a book tomorrow. The story has the capability of becoming a movie in the future. Every single thing is possible. But even by the time I'm building castles in the air, somebody takes it, turns it into a play, turns it into a book, turns it into a movie, gets an Oscar, and I'm still sitting and wondering, why didn't I take the first step? Copyrights protects such people. The whole point of copyright law is that if I've written a story, I want to protect it under a literary work or a dramatic work, the Indian Copyright Act comes to my rescue. Let me push it up a notch. Let's say that I'm a photographer. Now, photography is a passion for a lot of people. Now, I come from a city which is known for producing a lot of amazing photographers. I'm currently based out of Pune. So a lot of my friends, my clients, some of my associates, they're photographers, and I've seen the kind of work they do. But that's the best part about it. The work is unique. They spend their time, they spend their money, they spend their entire effort. It's a lot of blood and sweat you can see in those amazing photographs coming out. Photographs of the Milky Way galaxy itself, a photograph of a bird exactly, like touching the tip of the water before it can hunt its prey. There are so many photographs that come out. And these photographs, unfortunately, people just pull it out and start using it. People either sell those photographs, they use it for their advertisement purposes, they use it for their marketing purposes, or in worst case scenarios, they'll just use it as a wallpaper. Photograph achhi lagi, wallpaper bana diya. This is the kind of an attitude that people have. And to curb such an attitude, we have the copyright law. The copyright law is designed to protect what is your creativity in terms of photography. So any photos that you develop, now trust me, when you're looking at the photography industry, it is a billion-dollar industry. People do amazing photography tricks. People have amazing ways of developing their photos. People have amazing ways of clicking their photographs. But what do copyright people, what does the copyright law do to protect them is what a copyright lawyer is designed to do to protect them. Let me push it up a notch even more. We all are big fans of movies. Now, a person like me, like Suvarna ma'am knows over here, that I am a massive movie buff. You take Marvel, you take DC, you even take Bollywood. I am mad about movies. So every time, whenever I've taken my sessions and classes, or even if I've taken practical examples in quotes, I have quoted examples from movies about how a movie can be copied, how segments of movies are copied, how aspects of movies have been copied. So when we are looking at these factors, we have always known that a lot of Bollywood movies are somewhere around the corner adapted, stories are adapted, scenes are adapted from the Hollywood movies. Or even if we look at Indian movies, we have seen a lot of different movies from a particular language being adapted into another language. Certain cases, the licensing is there, but in certain cases, there is no licensing at all. People just outrightly pick that movie, translate it, and that's it. They have their own version of it. This is again where copyright law gets involved. Copyright advocates and attorneys who are working with the movie industries, they are doing very well. They actually get to explore the differences. They actually get to explore the challenges and problems. They either prosecute or defend. And that is where copyright law becomes a very powerful entity for the movie sector. The same applies for the music industry as well. You take up the music industry. Today I'm I've written a very nice song. Tomorrow I see Badsha copying it, making a rap out of it, and that's it, singing away to glory. He's earning in crores, and people don't even know that I wrote that song. This is where the problem gets even worse. So can people just take your creation and recreate it as their own entity? Does the copyright law protect you? Yes, it does. How it does it is what a lawyer needs to figure out. And how it does is what a lawyer is paid for. Which takes me to the last part of copyrights itself, which is in India, the softwares. Around the globe, softwares are patented, but in India, softwares are basically brought under the copyright law as languages: C, C++, Java, Python. So you guys are, I'm sure most of you would be well versed with PUBG, well versed with Subway Surfers, well versed with that horrendous game called Candy Crush, well versed with so many different entities. Why Candy Crush in particular I dislike is because of the fact that I keep getting a lot of requests. But the point is, these games have captured the audience. Candy Crush, I know my mom plays it, my father plays it, my sister plays it. So I know that it has captured the audience like crazy. And the beautiful part about it, it is compatible in many devices. But me, imagine if I create an alternate variation using the same code of Candy Crush. I'm creating an alternate variation, and I'm calling it as like Candy Press, or I'm calling it as Break the Toffee. Then immediately I am violating the intellectual property or the original beautiful creation of Candy Crush. What Candy Crush has created, the kind of graphics they have used, the kind of coding they have used, the kind of updates they have given, the way they have captured the entire gaming industry, I have just copied it in the blink of an eye. So that is where, again, copyright law plays a very important role. It has always been debated that why do games have a similar structure? It is because they are based on the source code. But what makes the game unique? It is the storyline in the game. Now, I would not debate by saying that GTA and Assassin's Creed are the same. Any gamers out here, you would understand that GTA is a completely different level. Rockstar Games, one of the biggest intellectual property holder in the entire world, literally. So that is how the entire gaming sector defends its copyrights. And in India, they have to, like play a major role in protecting the intellectual property, especially the copyrights of the games in India. Because games come with multiple aspects. The best way to understand copyrights is to understand a game. They have artistic work, they have literary work, they have a storyline that works completely beyond it. They have artwork which is associated with photographs of the games. They have character descriptions. And finally, they have the code or the platform on which the game works. So which brings me to a tiny question that people have asked me, that many times I take examples of Subway Surfers or Temple Runs, which are quite similar. Is that also, like breaching one's copyright? Yes, there has been a massive debate between the two entities. When Temple Run arrived, it was the first of its kind, which actually involved the entire, like the sensors of the devices to play the entire game, which took us to the next level where we questioned. We had entities like Subway Surfers. We had this game called Brave, which had come out, which had games which basically involved a character running, collecting coins, and ultimately leveling up. So when all these entities came by, people asked, aren't they all the same? Yes, the storyline was the same, but the expression was different. So the copyright was for the expression. Now we understood this fact. So anybody could identify or differentiate between Temple Run and Subway Surfers purely because of the artwork and expression, but the baseline was the same. So where this copyright debate is involved is where a copyright advocate comes into play, which takes me to the last part of my part of this entire discussion. Acha sir, trademark hai, copyright hai. How much money do these people make, sir? I just spoke to you about some of the biggest industries. I just spoke to you about some of the biggest challenges that these industries face. Let me give you a statistics. Per day, like since we closely work, me and Pragyam, I'm very closely work with the Indian Intellectual Property Registry and the IP offices. So every day we see a lot of applications coming in. At an average, every day, we see close to 10,000 trademark applications coming in a single intellectual property office. I'm giving you the maths over here. Huh? So if you guys have a calculator, please keep it in your hand. Okay. Per day, 10,000 applications for a single trademark application walks in. Each trademark application, a lawyer can charge anywhere between 1,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees, depending on the gravity of the application. Is it a single class application? It's a multiple class application, whatever, anywhere between 1,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees is the charge. So this is per day. So now if you do the math, if you are dealing with some premium trademark application filings in just 1 month, and you're dealing with at least 50 applications just charging 1,000 rupees per application, my dears, you have made an income of 50,000 rupees just at the filing stage. अब इसके बाद भी है. There is an examination stage, there is an objection stage, then there is an opposition stage. And objections can cost anywhere between 2,000 rupees to 5,000 rupees. And opposition can cost anywhere between 3,000 rupees to 15,000 rupees, depending on the gravity of the objection or opposition. And furthermore, you have show cause hearings. So when you're talking about show cause hearings, if it's a very basic show cause hearing, people can charge anywhere like 1,000 to 2,000. But if it's a very advanced level show cause hearing, you know that you are going to be in a lot of mess if you don't prepare well. People charge even 10,000 to 15,000 for a show cause hearing. Now, these are the premium kind of trademarks we are talking about. So if you do the math, if you know your trademark law very well, and you're going all solo in the market, and you've built a reputation for yourself, you can easily earn anywhere between 30,000 to 1.5 lakhs if you know your basics well. But if I look at the statistics, what if I join a law firm? What if I join a corporate? If you join a law firm, any decent law firm or a good law firm, when I say a good law firm which has a good portfolio of trademarks and copyrights and patents, they can very well, like pay you anywhere close to, as a fresher, from 15,000 to 30,000 to 50,000, depending upon how much knowledge you have, how much internship experience you have, how you have performed during your probation period. So this is how the statistics goes. And as you grow, now this I'm talking about a fresher. At an average, a fresher comes between the age of 22 to 25. So if you're looking, by the time you reach the age of 30, you are looking very well about a 6-digit figure as a monthly income. But make it a point, baithe baithe kuch nahi milega, you got to work for it. You have to really put your heart and soul into it. You should be trained in the art of trademarks, as I like to quote it, or trained in the art of patents, trained in the art of copyrights, as I like to quote it. And this statistics I'm giving you only for trademarks. Let me take it to copyrights. Copyrights also has a similar structure. So copyrights, majorly, you see, it is the litigation that brings in and the investigation that brings in the money. So if you are in the copyright industry, if you know, and if you are a culturally inclined person, and you know the copyright issue or the disputes, you can anywhere target a remuneration of 20,000 per month to easily 2 lakhs per month, depending upon your knowledge, experience, and majorly the knowledge on the subject matter. Sirf law jaan ke fayda nahi hai. You even need to know, if I'm talking about the movie industry, I need to know where the movie industry has gone wrong. If I'm talking about the gaming industry, I need to know where the infringement has happened. If I'm talking about the art industry or the photography industry or something as simply as interior designing, I need to have the basic structural knowledge about how there is a copyright infringement or passing off in this particular industry. Because where you have knowledge, it is easy to justify. Where you have knowledge, it is easier to investigate. Where you have knowledge, it is easier to apply the law in the position or place where the problem has happened. And the beauty about trademarks and copyrights, I'll tell you, is every day you're dealing with a new challenge. Now, as we know, the traditional laws, they are on a fixed frontier. You need to be very clear about how the law is functioning, how the law is structured. But where I'm talking about intellectual property as a career, where trademarks, copyrights, patents, designs, geographical indicators coming in, you're dealing with innovation every day. You're dealing with places where you need to find the smallest difference or the biggest similarity. And that is how the entire trademark copyright industry is structured. And looking at a career in this field, you may hear a lot of people telling you that trademark copyright, हाँ बस application file कर दो. It's not like that. Even I've heard in patents that people say that ना बस एक application डाल दो. I'm sorry. There goes a very deep study on what is a patent. There goes a very deep study on what is this trademark for. What if tomorrow there's a new patent in the market and the trademark is not protected? So everything is interconnected. So you need to not just have a knowledge about the brand name. You need to have the knowledge about the brand name, the law behind the brand name. What is this brand name for? Is it for an artistic work? It is for a software? Is it for a technology? Is it for a book? It is for a brochure? It is for a drama? It is for a movie? It is for a song? It is for a new automobile-based technology? Is it for a new medicine? It is for a new algorithm? It is for a new formulation? Kis cheez ka hai? You need to have the knowledge of what exactly it is. So it begins with the trademark. And once you have this research and you know what you're arguing upon, your trademark is protected. Then you go into the basics of it. You go into the essence of it. You look at the website. What is the website content? Basically, somebody just takes the content from your place and puts it on Amazon, or somebody just takes the content from your website and puts it on his or her own website. So that is where copyright plays a very important role. So studying it, analyzing it, investigating it makes you a perfect trademark and copyright advocate, which finally leads into the technical aspects of it, going into the technical modules of it, looking at the technical structuring of it, the technical claims behind it. Is it the medical industry, or are we looking at an automobile industry or a mechanical industry? Are we looking at the nuclear industry? Are we looking at the outer space? Then you look at the big daddy of intellectual property, you look at patents. So that is why you need to have the knowledge very straight. And when you do it, it's not just about making money, you're having fun. Over to you, Pragya ma'am.
Pragya ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Keshva, for setting a good, examples with good examples and everything for every one of us. I have also learned so much being in this webinar with you, and always, like I say, always when I am there with people like you in a webinar, I too also grow as a person, and it takes my knowledge to a further extent. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Swarna. So I'll discuss mostly about patents, and we'll go step by step that why intellectual property protection is important, and why then patent, how to look at patent domain in that sense. So I'll begin with, where 100 years back or 30-40 years back, during the age of our grandfathers and their generation, what was the main scenario of earning money? They used to invest in property, a lot of property khareed lete hain, movable property, immovable property, cars were new, land was the medium where they used to invest. And now in digital era, the times have changed. People are investing in bitcoins, in digital assets, in building their personal profiles, in building their digital assets mainly. So when we have moved from an era of protecting property to protecting intellectual property, then you can see the massive amount of change in the industry as a whole as well. So that's why if you are creating something digitally, it's important to protect that. And digital protection can come in the form of patents, trademarks, copyright, and lot of other types of intellectual property as well. For example, trade secrets and other things. So to begin with, we have a lot of potential in market, and 20 years from now, I see a lot more digitization. People will be investing a lot of money in NFTs and things like that, and maybe a new technology comes up later on. So yeah, so that's about it. Now let's move to patents. Why patents? Why we should protect patents? The thing is, as I say always, one patent has a potential to give rise to one industry. Let's take one example. When we were very small, I was very small, we used to write with a slate and a batti, right? We all have used it when we were in probably our LKG, UKG or preschool. Then chalks came up, and those battis, they vanished from the market. Then dustless chalks came up, and the normal chalks were vanished from the market. Then we had whiteboards with marker pens. Now we are using digital pens and digital screens. So every patent give rise to one industry. For example, when we were very small, I used to love taking photographs, and we had that roll cameras with a brand name called Kodak, which is very famous, and I know most of you would be knowing it. So during protection of cameras, what happened, let us see. So there was a company called Kodak, there was a company called Samsung. In Kodak, there was a person, he made digital camera for the first time. He filed a provisional application, and the application got lapsed because the company could not foresee the potential of that technology. And then someone from Samsung protected that technology, and they started building up that technology. And Kodak vanished from the market, and Samsung was the new Kodak with with their digital, digital phones with cameras, with digital cameras and everything. Now we see the use of digital cameras are also decreasing because our phone cameras are doing very well in the market. So one patent has potential to give rise to one industry as a whole. And you can imagine the kind of royalty a client or an inventor can gain from that patent. For example, if we have, technology of a text message service. Text message service was protected under a patent act and under a patent, and 7 billion people on earth can use that technology at a single time. So I'm just giving you a random example. A 7 billion people using text message service, the text message used to cost 1 rupee at that time. Even if a person get 0.001 paisa from each text message as a royalty, he would be a billionaire because there are 7 billion people on it. So patent has that kind of potential. So whenever, client, they come to us, we forget that his technology could be life changing for him. And that's why what people generally do, we can draft a patent ourselves. It's not required to hire a professional to draft that patent. And after 5 years, because the patent prosecution in itself is a long process, in India, it takes approximately 5 years to get a grant. So if that is the scenario, and after 5 years, you get to know that the draft was not up to the mark and you are not able to get the patent on it, it's like you lose that kind of potential from the market, what you could have earned from a single patent. So now coming back to what are the career opportunity in patent. So for that, let me share my screen to show you something. So this is approximately how many applications were filed in 2018-19, and you can see the numbers. It is a snapshot from the annual report of 2018-19. So if approximately 50,000 applications of a patent are filed within an year, which is increasing because this data is also 2 years old. From one single application, a person can charge just for the drafting. He can charge anything between 25,000 to 1.5 lakh just from the single application, depending upon what is the technology, what is the skills, what is the effort you will put in drafting. And this is just for the drafting, not including the prosecution and anything else. So one patent application has that kind of potential. Now, looking at the career options. So in patents, just remember patent in itself is a bigger field, and you can specialize in, you can choose one single field and specialize in that. It will help you build up as a brand for yourself. If you're good at drafting, you can do only drafting. If you are good at searching, you can do only searching. There are specialized firms and specialized people who are focusing on just one thing. There are firms who focus on just patent commercialization and monetization. There are firms who focus just on drafting and prosecution. There are firms who focus just on patent searches. So it's not important that you practice everything. You can choose one field and become master of that. Even you can choose trademarks and become a master of that. You can choose copyright and become a master of that. Be a master of one thing, and I promise you, you will not think about how much money I can earn, because the industry has that kind of potential. Just choose one field and become a master of that, and then you can think of expanding to different fields. So let us take a look at what these things are. So patent search and analysis in itself has many stages, like where all it can come into picture. It can come into picture before inventing, to check whether your application is patentable or not. Like before inventing, people would see whether you can before inventing, people can see whether there is a potential in market. For example, I want to enter into mobile industry to check where I can innovate with my mobile phone and introduce a new mobile phone. So I'll check the market. So that market analysis come into patent search. Then comes the second thing, which is called patentability searches, which is done to check whether your invention can get a patent or not. Then patent search comes at the stage of opposition and revocation to check whether you are infringing somebody else's intellectual property or not. Then there is something called freedom to operate search. For example, I am launching a television in Indian market, and I am importing it from US, and I'm going to sell it in India. So I'll have to see whether I'm infringing anybody else's intellectual property in India or not. So that is called freedom to operate search. I'm free to operate in India, but before doing that, I'll need to search whether I can do that or not. So this is about searching. Then drafting, you all know that it is a techno-legal document. So you have to study the technology, you have to apply law in that, then you can draft a patent. There is a separate field called patent illustrations, which specialize in making drawings for patents. Just drawing, for each drawing for a patent application, you can charge $20, which is around, I think, 1,500 rupees. And if you're charging 1,500 rupees for one drawing, and each patent application has around 10 drawings, you have that kind of potential in just patent illustrations. So that's why I'm saying pick a field and market yourself in that field. I do patent illustrations only. I'll sit and make drawings, and from each patent, probably from one patent application, just by preparing drawings, I can charge 10 to 15,000. So I think people lose the potential because they lose to think that they can be a master of a single field, and they want to try and do everything together and do not market them in one field. Then filing in itself is a different field, where in India, filing is done from US, Australia, Singapore, and many other countries. For example, I know the data, that's why I'm telling all of you. For example, there are 8,000 applications from US that are filed in India, and you can charge approximately 35,000 rupees per application for a US client just for filing. You'll prepare forms and you'll file that application. If 8,000 applications are filed from US, I think targeting 50 applications would be very easy for you, and that can take care of a whole year of salary, I suppose. So if you work on numbers, you can get that kind of idea that what is the potential of intellectual property market. But the thing is, people, they do not want to market themselves in one field. Then patent agent exam, of course, is a mandate if you want to enter into filing or drafting. That is there, but even if you are not a patent agent, you can go into drafting. If you are aware of drafting and you are into drafting totally, then you can draft the application. But for filing, patent agent examination is mandatory. Then we come to prosecution. Prosecution means drafting of office action responses. The examiner will share the examination report, and you'll have to draft the office action responses for that. Prosecution, again, in itself, for drafting one office action response, you can charge around $500, which is 35,000. So even if you get 2 office action per month, I think 70,000 rupees you can earn pretty well. So you just have to focus on from where I can get 2 clients who can give me 2 office action responses per month. But maybe you can face some difficulty with working with startups or Indian clients, for example. But then if you position yourself well, you are able to convey that you have the skills and you can provide quality, then you can charge same amount of money from the Indian clients as well. So that you'll have to see from like whether you want to work on numbers and charge less and do a lot of work, or you want to choose good clients, work with them, and probably work with lesser clients but earn equally well. So that these are two strategies with which, if someone wants to open their own firm or business, they can target. So in prosecution also, pre-grant oppositions and things like that come in, which are equally good. Now, if you are not a engineer or not, you do not have a technical background, you can enter into litigation and post-grant procedures, where litigation works like a normal litigation in courts. And like Keshva said about copyright, it's mainly similar to that, where we have a lot of research, a lot of investigations, and we move forward in a similar manner. So that is about litigation. Now, next part comes IP commercialization and management. So here, even if you are a lawyer, you can develop a sense of negotiation. Like if you're a good lawyer, I'm sure you'll be a good negotiator also. And if you're a good negotiator, you know about business and something about management, I think this could be the best field, because it includes things like IP strategy, IP audits, IP valuation, and licensing. Trust me, if you are a good negotiator, you are doing good negotiation for your clients, for business, for millions and billions of dollars, you can yourself earn $1 million. Like if there is a 50 million dollars deal, you can take 1 million from the client. So that's kind of potential. I'm just talking about potential in the market. I'm not talking about, whether we all are earning that much or not. But I'm telling you, if you focus on one thing, you'll be able to take care of your finances very well. Then there is a different field called academics, where each academic institute has a technology transfer office, which is mainly in engineering colleges. So if you can also work with the technology transfer offices, or you can work as an external counsel with the technology transfer offices. Like you can be an in-house working employee of a technology transfer office, which will do preliminary search and groundwork for you, and they transfer the work to a different lawyer, which could be a law firm or an individual lawyer. So this is another field where patent lawyers or IP lawyers can work in. And these are my suggestions. Like if you want to work in patents, there has to be a love for technology, because I as a person love technology. I have grown up with technology. I used to play with all building blocks. I used to, होता है ना कि घर के सब चीजें डैमेज करके, मतलब मेरा बचपन में शौक था कि वो पुराने सोप डिशेस होते हैं, उसके अंदर मोटर्स कैसे फिट करके उसको कार की तरह चला सकते हैं. So you have to have that kind of love for the technology. That's how you'll be able to get clients, because your clients they'll trust you that you love technology and you love law, so you'll be able to come up with a good draft. Then you have to have an analytical mind, logical thinking, problem solving capabilities, because if you're preparing office action responses, trust me, you'll have to figure out how your technology is different from all the rest technology which is existing anywhere in the world. And most of it is about arguments, so you have to draft your arguments very well in that. And the problem solving capability is one such thing which you all should incorporate. Analytical thinking, logical thinking, and ability to express complex matters very, very clearly. See, why you need this is because, and it's not only for patent, it's for IP as a whole, or if you are practicing law as a whole. Sometimes we see people draft in a manner, for example, if I have drafted something and I give it to Swarna should not come up to me and say, Prigya, I do not understand this. If you are giving something to your clients, the client should not say that I am unable to understand this. And specifically, if I talk about patents, your examiner may not be from the same technical field. Like I can get an electronics examiner who does not know anything about bitcoins or crypto, and I can enter, like, I have to undergo an examination process with him. So my patent draft should not be in a position that someone who is not well versed with the technology is not able to understand that. So that's why I say ability to express complex matters very clearly and in simple language is another skill which people tend to fail to incorporate, because they think if I am writing in some fancy language, then my draft is very good. It's not the case. Your draft would be good if the examiner is able to understand it. If he is not able to understand it, he's not going to give you a patent. So I think that's all from my side. And yeah, now I'll hand it over to Suvarna.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the very informative segment on patents. If there are any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. I can see that some of you have put your questions here. Before we take up your questions, let me first take you through the course that Loctopus offers on IPR, which is being taught by both Keshwa sir and Prigya ma'am. Prigya ma'am teaches the patent part of the course, and Keshwa sir teaches the copyright and trademark part of the course. So before we head to the question and answer segment, I would like to just give you a brief about the course, and as well as the dates from which it is available, and also just to give you a better idea about what we focus on here, because we not only want to teach you theory, but also practical aspects of the law. And both Keshmav sir and Pragya ma'am focus on that a lot, because they understand that there's a lot that law schools are not teaching at the moment. So I'll just share my screen with you all so that you get a better idea. So yes, I will be talking about this course that we have at Loctopus, which is Intellectual Property Law and Practice course. It is going to start, the next batch is starting from 1st December. So basically we have a 3-month long course. It consists of all 3 aspects. Next month is for patents. Then January, we'll be teaching trademark, and then February, we'll be teaching copyright. You can also do these courses individually. So if you do not want to enroll for the entire 3-month long course and you only want to study patents, which we're doing in December, so you can enroll for that as well. But I'm going to just take you through the entire course so that we can tell you about all 3 subjects all at once. So first of all, why this course? We understand that IPR practice is a very viable area. It's a growing field. It has several up and coming opportunities. And we know that as lawyers, as future lawyers, a lot of you may want to enter this field, which is why we decided to build this course, and Loctopus decided to offer this course, focusing on the practice part of it as well. I think one of the most important things here is that the course is NIPO certified. It's the National Intellectual Property Organization. So NIPO backs the course, and it is certified by them. So what we teach you here, the course objectives, basically, we teach you the ins and outs of intellectual property law and practice. We'll help you irrespective, whether you're a first year student or you're a young lawyer, it doesn't matter. The course has been built in such a way that it builds on your knowledge from ground up. So no matter what stage you are at the moment in life, in your professional career, this course is going to help you no matter what. It is not only strong in theory, but it's also very, very practical. All the assignments that we give you, they're all very practice and application based, because we understand that, theory is very easy to learn, but it's difficult to implement that, which is why we've built the course this way. So there are a lot of aspects of this course. We teach you trademark search, registration, drafting of patent specifications, then trademark and copyright objections, oppositions, etc. Of course, we have, since we are doing this course and we understand that it's a 3-month long course, which can become a lot for students. We make sure that we are regularly nudging you, sending you feedback. We are consistently in touch with you and are basically over communicating so that you do not feel left behind, or you're not feeling uncomfortable, or finding the course very difficult to navigate. We're always here for you, no matter when you need us, in what capacity you need us. We're here to help you through this course, which is why we're always in communication with you. And of course, it introduces students to career possibilities in IPR. This entire webinar has just given you a glimpse into the world, but with the course we wish to offer you a lot more information regarding this field and how to get into it. We've also in the past seen that a lot of students who've done well in this course have also interned at multiple IPR law firms, tier 1 law firms as well. And also with Keshwa sir and Pragya ma'am, we've also had people who've studied here intern with them. So the possibilities are endless. The mode of learning, so first and foremost, this course, like any other Loctopus course, is completely online. We have live lectures and assignments. So once a week we have one live session. For copyright and trademark, Keshwa sir takes those live sessions, and for patent law, Prigya ma'am takes the live sessions. We also have assignments. We have one assignment for each subject, because we don't want to overburden you with assignments and just tests and all. So just one assignment for each subject, but it's a good, comprehensive, exhaustive assignment, which we expect you to do within a certain specified period of time. These are text-based. There are text-based modules. There are recorded video lectures, and there are live sessions, all prepared by industry experts, including Keshwa sir and Pragya ma'am. The recorded video lectures also exist as a part of the course. We have an online-based basically a doubt resolution forum. So if you have any academic doubts, we have a forum where you can put them in, and we can get them answered for you in 1 or 2 days of time. Also, we urge you to actively ask questions during these live sessions. So a lot of the question answer part of the course that also happens during these live sessions. And as you already know, there's a reasoning based assignment, and we give personalized feedback, which is extremely important. We do not give you a generic feedback at all. We make sure that you know what you've done well and what you haven't. So that's there. Prigya ma'am herself checks the assignment. So she puts in a lot of time and effort into that. The course is completely online. It's self-paced. You can take your time. You can do it according to your schedule. It's completely self-paced. It's 3 months long or 1 month long, depending upon if you only want to do one subject, or if you only want to do 2 subjects, then you can enroll for that. Otherwise, there's a 3-month long course which consists of all 3 IPR subjects. And yes, if you once you're done with the course, you get a certificate of completion. If you do well in the course, we also give you a merit certificate. As an add-on benefit of doing the course, we also help you with internship opportunities. If you do really well in the course, you have an opportunity to publish an article at Loctopus's journal, which is called Academic. It has an ISSN number as well. You also get a chance to be a peer mentor, which is a paid position. And there's, of course, CV advice and career counseling. There are workshops that we have. They are free for our alumni. So that's always something that we do and we promote, because we understand that it's very important for you to get career counseling to understand how this field works, how to navigate through it. So that is there. And yes, so at the moment we are giving a coupon code, because all of you came here, you came here to learn, and we understand your motivation behind it, which is the reason why we are offering at the moment a 20% waiver on the cost if you enroll for it at the moment, like between today and 24th. So if you enroll within 3 days and you use this coupon code LLS IPLP20, you can get a 20% waiver. The 3-month long course is for 9,900 rupees. But if you use the waiver, then the course is for 7,900 rupees. And if you wish to do the 1 month long patent law course, then that is for 4,500 rupees. And with the waiver, with the coupon code, it will be for 3,600 only. Okay, I'll also start taking up questions. Okay, Keshva sir, the first question is for you. The question is media law a segment of copyright law? And if yes, then what aspect of it is media law?
Okay. So see, media law, I wouldn't call it as a segment of copyright law, but then again, copyright plays a very important part of media law. Okay. So when you look at the media law, it's basically about majorly on content work. Let me just take a simple example. Sometime back, I had given a a live talk show on Radio One. So there, I remembered that the first instruction given to me was, "Are you talking about original content, or will you be taking content from other places?" I said, "I will be talking a little bit of. I'll be giving a little bit of original content, and maybe here and there I'll be taking from other places." They specifically asked me what are the other places. So I told them that I would be talking about ABCD points, ABCD from these particular areas. They said that, "Sir, we would require a permission before we can proceed with it because it is a copyrighted work." So basically, when we are talking about content per se, we have to remember that anything that you see on the media frontier, it could be an audio or it could be a visual media. It all depends upon the copyright front. So I wouldn't say that media is a subset of copyright, but a media frontier cannot survive without the copyright laws in place. That is to answer your question.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Pragya ma'am, I'll put this to you. What are the other job opportunities basically in IPR apart from litigation, apart from litigating practice?
There are a number of opportunities. Like if you do not want to enter into litigation for trademark, you can work in filing, filing application, drafting office action replies, examination replies, both in trademark and patent. I think mostly the work on the examination in patent specifically, the litigation part is very, very less. Mostly the work is towards drafting, filing, searching, drafting, and prosecution of the application. So if you do not want to represent in court or probably attend the hearings, drafting and prosecution is the best field where you can enter and take care of, probably just making the document sitting from your home. And it is a very good remote opportunities because you just have to be at any place with an internet connection and you can work from there. It's not a mandate to be in Delhi or in metro cities or a place where a patent office or a trademark office exists. All the filings happen through online medium now, both in copyright, both in like all in copyright, trademark, patents, all the filings majorly happen through electronic filings. Nowadays hearings also happen through video conferencing. So in trademark we get an option, in trademark also we get an option whether we want to attend a physical hearing or a virtual hearing. So everything can be done from sitting at a place which is not a place where the patent office or an IP office exists. So there are a lot of opportunities apart from litigation or practicing or representing in courts.
So I'd just like to add on to what Pragya ma'am said. See, basically, if you look at me, okay, I'll just take my own example on this front. When it comes down to practice, yes, I'm there. Apart from practice, I'm basically what you call as a legal consultant. Okay, so in intellectual property, consultancy plays a very important role. Like Pragya ma'am rightly said, just the search part of a patent or a search part of a trademark or a search part of a copyright itself is a lucrative work. Beyond that, you're looking at due diligence, like how an application needs to be structured, what are the claims that should be on the patent front, or in trademark, how the niche classification has to be done, or in a copyright, how do you do that character description? Or if tomorrow there is an objection or an examination report or a discrepancy reply, how do you respond to that? Beyond that, it is basically about many a times what happens in the trademark front. People will come to me and will give me like, a name and say, "Ki, sir, we need to trademark this." We know pretty well that you cannot trademark it. So there itself, sitting with them, convincing them, telling them, explaining to them, doing a legal search, and probably in a worst case scenario, helping them choose a name itself is a major part of your consultation work. So apart from practice, many people I've seen who have come to me and say that, sir, I do not like litigation. So what do I do? Because I do not blame, say a lot of legal practitioners, it's not important that they are not mandatory that they have to be litigants. In many case scenarios, they are also individuals who want to be advisors. Okay. Like for example, there is this one particular project which we had taken up. It was a project on on just trademarks. But the more we explored it, we realized that there was a copyright assignment to it. There was a patent assignment to it. And slowly we started advising and developing on those frontiers. So just for that consultation, we were able to earn well. The litigation never came. Sometimes a really good intellectual property advocate or an attorney or an advisor or a consultant tries to ensure that no litigation comes in the first place. So the entire structuring of your applications, your patent forms or your trademark forms or your copyright forms, they have to be structured in such a manner that kal ke date mein jaake litigation na hai. And sometimes trademarks have to work alongside your company laws as well. So for example, when the registrar of companies, they will raise multiple objections when you're trying to go for a company formation because there is a trademark objection, because there is a similar trademark in existence. So how you structure your trademark base in order to obtain or incorporate a company also plays a very important role. So practice is not the only thing in law, and especially in IPR, practice is not the only thing. Yes, it's a very important element, but beyond that, you have multiple things that you can do, which Pragya ma'am and I have told you.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
Suvarna.
Thank you so much. That was very, very insightful. So there's another question here. Someone has asked, as a fresher, can they choose to work only for music copyright in a law firm?
Okay. Now see, there is a thing you need to understand. Okay. What is the meaning of the word fresher? Okay, this is something which has always been an arbitrary terminology. When even I have interns coming to me, like I give a lectures and I give a lot of lectures in colleges. I have interns coming to me. I even have people coming to me from different places and say that, sir, I'm a fresher. See, you don't stop calling yourself a fresher. That's the first important thing. You are in 5 years or 3 years of law school, or you're doing your diploma. Stop calling yourself a fresher. A better terminology you should ask me. The question, I'll just rephrase your own question is, sir, as a person who has no knowledge in intellectual property or who does not have a lot of experience in intellectual property, would it be appropriate for me to join in a company which is for just music copyrights? The answer is yes, you can. You will be surprised to know my intellectual property journey, even in a law firm, was pretty crazy. It was an accident. I really did not have anything to do. One day, a partner caught me drinking, chai outside the office and said that, what are you doing here? Dragged me inside and gave me an assignment. And my first assignment was on music copyrights. Okay. That is how my journey began. For me, I was a fresher. I was sweating. I was worried, nervous. Thrice I thought of running away from there. But then I was like, okay, let me take it up as a challenge. I took it up as a challenge. I sat, I studied it. First, I just studied the law, I just studied the commentary. Then I looked at articles and examples. Then I was bold enough. I went to the partner. Yes, I knew the partner would shout at me, but I still went up to the partner and I said, Sir, samajh mein nahi aaya kuch bhi. Can you please explain? Person said that, what law have you done? But then actually sat and explained. That actually opened my eyes like, acha, theek hai, ye bhi hota hai. Then slowly I started working upon it. And when I finally came down to practice, or when I finally graduated and when I started taking up, like assignments, it was not Greek and Latin for me, which takes me to my associates. One of my associate came to me with zero knowledge in intellectual property. The only IPR she knew was what she learned in college. But 2 months she took only to study. 2 months she studied, 2 months she learned to analyze, 2 months she didn't work on live matters. But in the third month, when she took the first live matter, yes, she did make mistakes, but eventually she ended up learning. Okay. So don't call yourself a fresher and demean yourself. It's okay to sometimes accept that ki nahi aata mujhe. You ask me today, even sometimes I get a little messed up with the civil procedure code. But does that mean I don't know the law? My experience is not up to the mark. Okay, so that is what you need to say for yourself. So don't say that, yaar, main to fresher hu, mujhe kuch nahi aayega. To be on a much more brighter sense, you're a fresher. That's a very good thing because now you have the scope of learning more. Okay, I hope I've answered your question. Anonymous attendee is the name given over here.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. That was very, very helpful. Pragya ma'am, I'll put this one to you. How much internship experience does one need to get a great opportunity in this field? It's a very
Okay.
subjective question.
Yeah, again, I think it's based on the previous question which Keshva beautifully answered. So I'll put an extra edge to it. Acha, we all are lawyers or will become lawyers. And you know why legal practice is called practice? It's called because we have to learn every day and we have to practice it. We should have capability to make mistakes and get over our mistakes. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि एक दिन लॉ गलत अप्लाई कर दिया तो हम ऐसे बैठ जाएंगे कि हाँ अब हम लॉ अप्लाई ही नहीं कर सकते. We can't practice law. We are not a good lawyer. This doesn't mean that there are a lot of things in law as well, which you can learn daily and implement daily. That's why it's called legal practice. And how much internship experience do I need to get great opportunities in this field? Okay, so I'll give you my personal story. I think you'll be able to relate it well. So personally, I did many internships, I did in good law firms and companies as well. But the main internship where I learned the work was a 2.5 month internship. And believe me, in that internship, I was able to learn drafting. I was able to learn office action responses. I was able to learn how to, analyze a patent application and find out differences and draft the actual response. So it's totally depends on how much work you want to put in. The 2.5 months experience was sufficient to give me a good opportunity with a salary of more than 50 to 60,000 or more than that. So that was sufficient for getting that much money. The important thing here is you need to develop yourself in one single field, focus on one single field, whether it's trademark, focus on filing of trademark application, drafting response to examination reports. If you focus on these two things, and by the time you come out from a law school and you know these two things very, very well, you'll be able to grab a good opportunity. So in your internship, whether it is a 1 month internship, 2 month internship, 3 month internship, that time is sufficient time to learn. You can learn it within a week also, but it depends on the hard work you will put in reading that subject matter and understanding it. Once you get to it, that okay, now I'm confident that I can prepare trademark examination responses or patent examination responses or copyright discrepancy notices. During your interview, the stage comes where you have to showcase your talent. They'll ask you about case laws. They'll ask you about, how, if this objection, if for example, section 9 objection comes in a trademark examination report, how will you reply to that? How will you address that? If you know the work, you will be able to answer that question. If you'll be able to answer that question, you'll be able to grab that job also. So it depends on what efforts you are putting into learning something. Learn just one skill, focus on one skill, and then expand. This is my, like, if you ask me the lifelong advice which I can give a young lawyer, it would be this: just start with one skill and be a master of that skill that no one in India or the world does better than you. And you'll be the best. You'll not even think about the money. Money will just flow.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. So I'll put this one to you. How can one get an internship in IPR as a first-year law student?
Okay. So first thing first, see what happens is we all think of going big. Okay. Good. You go big at the end of it. It's not in the beginning itself. So always just change this one little thought frame that you people have, that उठाते ही first internship I'll do in Luthra, I'll do in Amarchand Mangaldas, or I'll go to Remfry Sagar, I'll go to Anand and Anand. Change that mindset. The first internship that you do could actually define your way forward. Okay. If you are going into IPR, I would never recommend jump into IPR in your first year. I would recommend learn the basics of law in your first internship. It should be as simple as going for an internship where you learn contract drafting, where you learn what exactly happens in the court, where you learn basically what happens when you're talking to a client. Because if you are not going to learn that, then learning IPR, because see, remember one thing, IPR is a specialized area of law. IPR, they are all the like Trademark Act, Patent Act, Copyright Act. They are special acts, they are special laws. But if you're not strong with the fundamentals itself, jumping into intellectual property is good, but it would be pointless because you may be very good at trademarks, copyrights, and patents. But if somebody asks you about how to draft a contract, how to draft a franchisee agreement, how to draft a licensing agreement, and you're all blah, you're really completely blank. So my advice to you is that it's good if you are interested in intellectual property from year one. बहुत अच्छी बात है. But always start with the basics. My belief is when you are doing law, learn the basics of litigation, learn the basics of drafting, pleading, conveyancing. Then you choose a specialized area. Because first 2 years you dedicate to that. It doesn't mean that just because you did your internship in a high court or a district court or with a practicing advocate or with a law firm sitting on drafting, you're going to do it your entire life. ऐसा कहीं नहीं लिखा. It's not written in stone. I technically started my IPR work after third year of college. Okay, which I told you was an accident. So my advice is start with the basics of going into everyday basics of traditional laws. Then you slowly come into IPR. But here is the point. Here is the little clause I'll add. Since you love IPR, since you are interested in IPR, you want to explore more of IPR. As you are doing your internships, do a diploma, do an added certification course. Or if you are in court, talk to other advocates who are already practicing in IPR. If you are doing like if you're practicing in the district court or the high court, talk to advocates who are into intellectual property. Just get few insights into them. And if you have time, don't go outside the court to grab a cup of tea. Try to go into the court and sit with people who are into that practice. This helps a lot. Okay, probably the best learning I got was in courts, was with people, rather than what I got in college. Trust me, what I did in college, if I start telling you, you people will judge me. Okay, I can't do that. But what I really did outside during my internships is what defines to what created a law firm and what created every individual who's a very good, practicing advocate or an advising advocate or a consulting advocate or a consulting lawyer in today's day. So to put it in a nutshell, start with the basics in your first year, traditional laws. Slowly after your second year or third year, go into intellectual property. You're most welcome in this field.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we can take. Okay, there's one more question, sir. I think this is for you. What category does a cake recipe fall under? I think they're asking how can you protect a recipe under IPR?
Okay, now this has always been a debatable question, you know. Now, if I'm now, Pragya ma'am, you have to help me in this answer as well. So, you know, this is an answer which we both have to give together. So when we look at a recipe, first I will look at the formulation. If there's a very strong, unique formulation, I would not go for a copyright or patent. I would choose to make it a trade secret. Okay. Now, suppose there is a certain technique or steps I follow, which I'm going to put in a book, which I'm going to publish in a book as a cookbook or a recipe book. That recipe book or the cookbook, I will copyright it. Okay. But if I'm actually developing a certain gluten-free glycerine, which I'm going to add to the cake, that if a person like me eats the cake and does not add 1 kilogram or 1 kg or 100 grams, I will patent that gluten-free, you know, like entire essence. So that I will want to patent it. And if I have the entire concept in a name, I will go for a trademark. Pragya ma'am, please add on if anything has to be added on this point.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because I know this question comes up because a few months back we got a patent on soup recipe and it became viral on LinkedIn, Instagram, and everywhere. How can we get a patent on soup recipe? So in cake also something similar, like Keshwa sir said about, you know, trade secret patent, copyright, trademark, everything is possible. So similarly, for example, your cake is visually different and you are taking a photograph of it. It can be a copyright. For example, you are using a robot to make that cake and a person is not making that cake. The whole technique of that robot and how that robot, you know, do a step-by-step procedure to make that cake, the whole technology can be protected. But remember, if you are like with soup recipe, I'll tell you very, very frankly, there are articles as well that you can read. That was a very interesting case because a person got a patent on a soup recipe and it was on basically on the components of that soup recipe. So industry was arguing whether we can get a patent, not a patent, or anything. So we can get a patent, it's not very difficult, but that patent is of no use. So if you want to spend money and in, you know, the prosecution and drafting of a patent application and everything just for publicity, you can get a patent. But maybe that patent would not be of any use. Why? Because when we mention the components in a recipe, for patent specifically, if you look at the claims, the components would be too specific. For example, I am adding 0.5 grams of salt, or I am adding 5.5 grams of salt to that. So even if second person comes up and adds 6 grams of salt to that recipe, he is not infringing your patent. So if you are making a patent too specific, it would be of no use. So it's better not to spend so much money on drafting and prosecution of it. So always look at the intellectual property, whether it's viable to protect it or not. Don't look at it, okay, I'll get a lot of money by drafting a patent application, so I should just go and draft it. The client after 6 years or 10 years will come and try to beat you up for spending a lot of money in his application. So it's better to judge the invention or the technology at the first stage and then decide whether you should advise in the first place to protect intellectual property, or you can advise just to keep their things as a trade secret. For example, a lot of people come up for asking whether we can protect this achar, this sauce, that sauce, pav bhaji masala and everything. Maybe it's not of any use to protect that, and then you should tell your clients at the very beginning itself.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for this answer. And for more such information, please check out the course because I can see that you have a lot of questions which are just subject related. So if you wish to learn more about the subject, as sir had also said, that, you know, if IPR is something that interests you and you wish to build on your knowledge here, then you should definitely try a certification course regarding that. That will really help you build on your knowledge. So you can check the course out. You can see if that fulfills your requirements. And thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for this wonderful, wonderful session. At Loctopus, I handle the IPR course, so I know how amazing both of them are as speakers, as teachers. So it's always a privilege being in the same session as you both. So thank you so much for this amazing session. And thank you all the attendees for staying till the very end because so many of you are still there. Most of you are actually still there. So we're very grateful that you decided to attend this session and you decided to stay for the entire session. So thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for this wonderful, wonderful session.
Thank you.
And I will be seeing you both very, very soon for the classes.
Definitely.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Please take care. Thank you, Pragya ma'am. Thank you, Suvarna. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.